If you cast your mind back to 2012, you probably remember the exact moment Jonathan Antoine first stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage. He was just a shy 17-year-old kid from Essex in an oversized t-shirt, auditioning alongside his good friend Charlotte Jaconelli. The judges, especially Simon Cowell, were visibly skeptical. But the second Jonathan opened his mouth to sing the prayer, the entire room was blown away by a voice that Simon famously compared to Luciano Pavarotti. When Simon suggested Jonathan should drop Charlotte to advance in the competition, Jonathan refused, proving right then and there that he was as loyal as he was talented. The duo went on to become the runners-up of Series 6, narrowly beaten by Ashley and Pudsey the Dancing Dog, and that unforgettable audition launched a career most singers can only dream of. Here is a look at Jonathan's journey from that viral moment to what he is up to right now. The duo years and going solo. The £1 million Syco deal and Simon's apology. Literally, the day after the BGT final, on May 13, 2012, the news broke. Simon Cowell wasn't about to let this duo slip away to a rival label. He offered them a £1 million recording contract with Syco Music, teamed up with Columbia Records for the US release. Simon's strategy was brutally commercial, but highly effective. He knew he had to strike while the iron was hot, so he booked them back-to-back studio sessions with producer Graham Stack, who had worked with the pop-opera group G4, to get a debut album on shelves by September. The goal was to perfectly time the release so they could plug the album during the live broadcast stages of the X Factor. During this crazy rush, ITV filmed a documentary, following them to Italy and France for intensive vocal coaching with Leon Magiera, who famously coached Luciano Pavarotti. The documentary also captured a rare moment of humility from Simon Cowell. He actually pulled Charlotte aside and apologized for his harsh comments during their first audition, admitting he was completely wrong to suggest they split up and that he now loved them as a duo. The chart success, Together and Perhaps Love. The rush to the studio paid off massively. Their debut album, Together, dropped in September 2012 and smashed the charts. It debuted at number 5 on the UK Albums Chart, hit number 7 on the Scottish charts, and even crossed the pond to peak at number 7 on the US Classical Chart. It was certified gold in the UK for shifting over 100,000 units. The album was a clever, sweeping mix of Italian translations of massive rock and pop anthems by Queen, Muse, and Elton John, alongside their signature audition song, The Prayer. Exactly a year later, in October 2013, they released their sophomore album, Perhaps Love. Lightning struck twice. It also peaked at number 5 on the UK Albums Chart and 9 on the US Classical Chart. By the end of 2013, the two teenagers from Essex had sold well over 250,000 albums combined. The real reason for the 2014 split. Given that immense commercial success, their announcement to split in February 2014 shocked fans. Rumors immediately swirled about label pressure or a falling out, but the reality was far less dramatic and actually incredibly positive for both of them. Sony Classical approached both Jonathan and Charlotte with individual solo record deals. As Jonathan later explained in interviews, the two had always had slightly different vocal destinies. Jonathan's booming, dramatic tenor voice was heavily leaning toward classical opera, while Charlotte's warm, honeyed tone was absolutely tailor-made for musical theatre and the West End. They realized that staying together as a crossover act might actually limit their individual growth. In a joint statement, they said, "To now be offered our own solo record deals by Sony Classical is the most exciting thing ever, and we are thrilled to be going back into the recording studio so soon." It was a completely amicable, business-savvy decision. Their manager, Jonathan Charlotte, staggered their solo launches so they wouldn't directly compete. Charlotte dropped her solo album Solitaire in June 2014, and Jonathan followed with Tenor in October 2014, which shot straight to numbers 1 on the Classical Artist Album Chart. While Jonathan admitted in a 2022 interview that they had naturally lost contact over the past decade as their lives went in completely different geographic and professional directions, there was never any bad blood. They were just two kids who rode an incredible wave together, secured the bag, and then smartly stepped off to build the exact solo careers they always wanted. Stepping out on his own, Jonathan didn't miss a beat. He released his debut solo album, Tenor, in late 2014, followed by Believe in 2016. As he grew into his 20s, his voice and his creative control only matured. In 2020, he released Going the Distance, a highly personal album structured like a 3-act musical. It was a massive milestone for him, because it was the very first time he felt ready to record Nessun Dorma, the aria he had been associated with since his BGT days. He followed that up with a festive hit, Christmasland, and eventually released a 2024 collaborative album featuring the music of legendary songwriter Diane Warren. Where is Jonathan Antoine now in 2026? The Speaking to You era, and finding his true voice. When Jonathan announced his upcoming album, Speaking to You, officially dropping on March 27, 2026, he made it clear that this isn't just another standard classical crossover record. In messages to his incredibly loyal fan base, affectionately known as the Fantoins, he described this new chapter as being rooted in absolute sincerity and integrity. After well over a decade in the music industry, he has noted that he finally feels completely comfortable in his own skin, creatively and personally. If you listen to the lead single, his cover of John Legend's All of Me, which dropped on January 13, 2026, you can immediately hear the shift. Instead of relying solely on his overpowering operatic volume, he leans into a warmer, more intimate, and easy-listening vocal style. The track features his close collaborator, producer Leo Z, playing the piano. The goal of this album isn't just to impress the listener with vocal acrobatics, but to offer comfort, unguarded honesty, and even a splash of his quirky, gentle eccentricity that he used to keep hidden from the public eye. Taking the stage in Riyadh, the Omar Khairat tribute. Jonathan's live performances have also expanded far beyond the typical UK and US classical circuits. A perfect example of his global reach happened on February 13, 2025. He was invited to perform as a guest artist at the prestigious Bakr al-Shadi Theatre in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. This wasn't just a standard concert. It was a grand, spectacular tribute honoring the legendary Egyptian musician and composer Omar Khairat, being asked to lend his world-class tenor voice to celebrate a towering icon of Middle Eastern music proves just how widely respected and versatile Jonathan has become on the international stage. Expanding the universe, Jonathan and the Magical Cape. While his voice is his primary instrument, Jonathan has always had a highly imaginative side that extends into writing and storytelling. Tapping into that creativity, he released his second children's book, Jonathan and the Magical Cape, in February 2024, co-authored with Kathy Gebhardt and beautifully illustrated by Hector Curiel. The 45-page chapter book is a delightful departure from his serious musical persona. The story follows a young Jonathan and his friends, Theo and Taj, who have grand adventures playing in his backyard until the lines between pretend play and actual magic start to blur. It is a sweet, creative outlet that allows him to connect with a younger audience while showcasing a completely different side of his artistic brain. Whether he is writing children's literature, performing in Saudi Arabia, or recording intimate ballads in the studio, Jonathan Antoine is proving that his greatest success is finally having the freedom to be exactly who he is.